I am in London now, ready to find a school where can I find new friends.
He's the perfect depiction of what the boogeyman should look like in real life. David Alter, or as he is known by a gazillion number of aliases such as David Stansfield and David London, is a horrifying 61-year-old gigantic man who poses as a schoolboy online.
Hi guys, I'm here at school.
When the internet found David in his weird corner on Instagram, he was dressed up in a tiny school uniform. His face was painted ghost white, his lips were bright red lips like a terrifying clown, and he wore high-heeled boots that looked ridiculous on a grown man. What's worse, David would often stick his tongue out and make weird noises while pretending to be a 9-year-old boy named Miles. For clarification's sake, David wasn't and still doesn't identify as a kid, nor does he remotely act like the average one. He's just a weird man with a weird internet hobby. From his appearance you can tell that David looks like the love child of Pennywise and Constance Niebuhrcracker from Monster House. He's such an infamous horror cow that people actually cosplay him for Halloween. David has been a breathing terror since the 1990s. He's been walking around real schools in England following taking secret photos. He got caught, went to court, but instead of going to jail, the courts just sent him to a mental hospital for a bit and let him go. Right now, he's closer than you think. David, or SmartSchoolBoy9, is an internet nightmare for parents who aren't taking parental guidance as strictly as they should. David follows and interacts with accounts on Instagram, and much of his hideous habits are hidden in the archives from millions of people who need to know more about him. This is the story of SmartSchoolBoy9, the internet's most disturbing horror cow, and where he is today.
I think I hear a running tram. Going back in time, not out of time. I think I like a little lemon and lime.
The whole SmartSchoolBoy9 story started way back in April 2024, when a regular person on Reddit was just scrolling through Instagram and stumbled onto something very odd. The user, who went by the name NumerusCut792, posted about a bunch of accounts that showcased a bunch of adults pretending to be kids. The first account was called TruthSticks11, and on the surface it seemed pretty normal. The bio said it was run by a degree-educated mother who wanted to stay anonymous while sharing her beautiful son's life. This mother would often post news clippings about offenders in the UK. What respectable parent would dedicate their account to this kind of content? And that wasn't the only fishy part about this account. Beyond the news articles and exposés, TruthSticks11 eventually switched to a personal account which was now run by the beautiful boy, instead of his mother, like it was stated in the bio. And this is when things took a completely weird turn. When you actually looked at the photos, you'd notice that the kid in the pictures had super pale, unnatural skin, giant bright red lips, and odd, uncanny valley eyes. In loose translation, these were not images of a real human. They were either terrible AI-generated images, or badly edited images because none of the faces seemed real. Some are still photos and others are very short clips with similarly weird sounds. In all these clips, it looks hollow and corpse-like, as if this kind of art was inspired by something real and sinister. And other than the weird images, the account also featured something rarely used in their clothing package: high-heeled boots. And the worst part was that the photos got progressively disturbing with each post, as many of them showcased the in increasingly suggestive poses and outfits, with some being images of older adults. Also, there were a few obviously edited photos of him and other relatives, but anyone can tell that these were far from authentic. And this was just one of the accounts that was referenced in the Reddit post, and it would be pivotal to the other two that we're about to address. The second account, girl.chloe12, was stated to be run by a 13-year-old named Lisa and supervised by her parents. Unlike TruthSticks11, this account featured actual images of a young girl. However, there were certain striking similarities that were hard to ignore. Like, for one, both accounts had a weird obsession with high-heeled boots. In addition to this, you could notice the same creepy editing style that was prominent in TruthSticks11. Then the final and most depressing of the three accounts was SmartSchoolBoy9, the main subject of our discussion. This account was different from the others because instead of edited photos of it showed videos and photos of an actual grown man. The bio said he was a 10-year-old schoolboy, but the videos showed a middle-aged or older man with a painted white face, bright red lips, wearing a full British school uniform with shorts, blazer, and tie, and stomping around in the high-heeled boots.
Hi.
The videos on this account were even more disturbing than the photos. In them, you could see this man sticking his tongue out and making these weird squelching noises, almost like he had some kind of oral fixation. His voice was this awful high-pitched fake voice that sounded nothing like a real and the captions were all about school and discipline, with phrases like, "I must behave" and "I need correction." When that first Reddit post went up, people started paying serious attention. Then in July 2024, 2 months after the first one, another Redditor posted about SmartSchoolBoy9, another account named Stephanie Schooley, which was suspected to be an alternate account. And this drew more attention to the topic than before. The person wrote, "I came across a post on r/Instagram where somebody mentioned these creepy Instagram accounts of people who are seemingly pretending to be, and I feel like all of these pages are run by the same person because of the horrendous editing style." The Redditor added that these accounts were following or accounts of people who might be cosplaying as just like them, and further digging into the two posts actually revealed that they were interacting with one another in the comments. And the Stephanie Schooley account also liked TruthSticks11's posts. And the cherry on top? Stephanie Schooley also possessed a love for high-heeled boots. Just like that, a connection was made between all the strange accounts through this Reddit post. And the crazy part is that there were many other accounts. So many that we might not be able to exhaust the list in the course of this video, simply because there are some that are yet to be discovered and others that don't have sufficient content to work with. And this Reddit thread opened the floodgates to the online investigations into this rabbit hole. The post amassed thousands of upvotes and hundreds of comments, and soon a whole subreddit was created dedicated to investigating SmartSchoolBoy9, which was assumed to be the main account since it featured the real, huge man behind the scenes. Not long after, online sleuths pieced together a trail of clues and were able to get a name, David. The breakthrough came when investigators noticed that the various Instagram accounts and names linked to SmartSchoolBoy9 frequently used the name David. He spoke more about this on an alternate account called Zia Patel, and according to the narrations, David was sometimes a classmate and sometimes a half-brother. The story was never consistent. Now that was one piece of the puzzle they had unmasked. Over time, people started digging through David's posts, trying to find clues about who he really was and where he lived. They found that he was constantly talking about certain places in London and Doncaster, and that he seemed obsessed with specific locations from his past. One of the biggest breakthroughs came when investigators realized that the voice in the SmartSchoolBoy9 videos matched the voice in other accounts perfectly, specifically TruthSticks11, which proved that he was the one behind all of them.
So, that's the account run by a man pretending to be a boy.
There's also a voice recording on Stephanie Schooley's page that sounded eerily similar to this voice.
I'm Stephanie. 13. It's even schoolwork.
Also, internet users found the voicemail tied to the number that was linked to the Stephanie Schooley account, and it pretty much sounds the same as what we've heard in the SmartSchoolBoy9 videos.
Hi, how are you? Now, if you need to, leave a nice message, but if it's a nasty message, you'll be reported. Bye.
With this revelation came a disturbing truth. SmartSchoolBoy9 was the same person who actively exposed other public accounts, and SmartSchoolBoy9's real name was David. But why was he so immersed in spaces, particularly in ones related to Australia? Was this his own way of trying to lure to his side? By letting him think he was a good guy or a savior who acted as a watchman for dangerous strangers on the internet? The answer is that it's very likely that it was his tactic. One thing these accounts had in common was that they were actively interacting with real kids on Instagram. David would leave comments his post pretending to be a supposed age, warning them about predators while being a predator himself. One comment he left on a young boy's profile said, "Be careful with some comments you receive because some bad people have obviously had their comments deleted before you read them. It happens to most boys in our age group." It's genuinely chilling to see how he used the language of safety to mask his predatory intentions. Not to mention that the most disturbing part of this comment was the fact that David had also warned the against listening to the comments of a certain Instagram user named Oisinor1. User Oisinor1 happened to be someone who called him out for his habits in the comments section. David had written in the comments, "You have some cool shirts, but I have to wear school uniform to school. It is nice, but casual isn't allowed, and it is quite hot here in the UK as the month of June suddenly got warmer." There were 3 likes to this comment, possibly from his alternate accounts, but the striking thing about it was the reply from Oisinor1, which was a brief call-out message saying, "Your account is terrifying. Please delete it." In response, Oisinor1 is one of many accounts. Obviously, he's jealous and thinks it clever to have a shitty profile pic and no posts or private so that he can send. This was how he went on telling stay away from Oisinor1 instead of listening to what the user had to say about the biggest and weirdest predator in question. Unfortunately for him, Oisinor1 wasn't the only person who was sickened by him. In August 2024, YouTuber Nick Crowley released a documentary about SmartSchoolBoy9 that got millions of views almost immediately. From then on, David was a notorious internet name. Much of his Instagram content was dissected, including clips of him being creepy towards Some included photos of him close to schools and playgrounds, and there's also one disturbing footage of him chasing a young in his high-heeled mini boots. He filmed this incident and posted it himself. Another YouTuber named Nexpo released a video around the same time called Instagram's Darkest Rabbit Hole. Together, these videos made David internet famous, and suddenly everyone was talking about him. And as more people dug, they linked numerous other accounts to him, including Stephanie Stansfield Only Facts, a Twitter account that was oddly fixated on stories about young girls being victimized by pedophiles. To nobody's surprise, the account had ties to the Stephanie account, and once again the name David appeared closely with Stephanie. And one Joanna Tang, which featured pictures of an Asian girl. But when the smart schoolboy situation blew up, a woman named Camille posted on Reddit claiming to be the woman in the posts. According to her, David had been using her pictures from when she was a teenager, and she was going to pursue legal actions against him. Hi, I have only now just been made aware of this SmartSchoolBoy9 situation. My name is Camille, and this man has used videos of me from when I was 15 years old and used them to create an alias called Joanna Tang. If anyone has any evidence, please message me on my Instagram at 18Camille or TikTok at 11Camille. I'll be reporting this situation to the police. This post was followed by another disclaimer on her TikTok account. In all these accounts, the users had an obsession with not only high-heeled boots, but also their age. They injected their name and age in 9 out of 10 of their posts, which is something kids don't usually do on the internet, and this was the same thing David did with his online personas. But with all that attention came problems. Trolls started harassing people they thought might be David. Random YouTubers went to Doncaster to try to find him, and on TikTok started making memes about him and sharing his videos around. The whole thing turned into this massive, chaotic mess where no one could agree on what was real and what was just internet gossip. The Discord server that had been dedicated to unraveling David's case was soon shut down. Even the subreddits for SmartSchoolBoy9 were banned for community violations, and for a moment it seemed like the real investigations would be lost in the adrenaline rush. This pushed the Reddit user who had kickstarted the main investigations to upload a follow-up post, begging everyone to calm down. Stop trying to contact him. Although nobody can stop you from commenting on his posts, it's really not adding anything beneficial, and will probably result in him destroying the accounts and breaking his hard drives with the amount of attention he knows he's getting. The police are working on the case. They have not provided any updates, besides the fact that they are taking it seriously. Despite the fact that the Reddit investigation was struggling to get anywhere, more serious investigators on other online platforms like Kiwi Farms were making actual progress. Kiwi Farms, which is a website known for documenting internet weirdos and drama, took the SmartSchoolBoy9 case seriously and started digging first through internet archives, then public records and old newspaper archives, and what they found was shocking. They discovered that the man who had been doing this in Doncaster was pretty notorious for it and was largely seen in the community where he lived. The man's name was David Walter Alter. When I lived in Doncaster, there was a man who used to walk around dressed as a 1960s schoolboy who looked like he'd walked out of a black and white photo. Pretty sure his skin was painted white. People said he was called David Walter Alter. There were so many eyewitnesses that you'd find it hard to believe that David had been living under a rock all his life. Some of my mates used to just refer to him as Whitey years ago for obvious reasons. Sometimes used to dress as a schoolgirl as well as a little boy apparently. This proved that David didn't stay holed up in his house. He was prowling the streets in his weird, ghoulish element. In addition to this, online sleuths also discovered that this same man had been doing this kind of thing since the 1990s, long before Instagram even existed. The first major clue came from a Usenet thread from 1999. Usenet was basically a really old version of online forums, and someone had started a thread called Tesco's Freak Show Doncaster. The person who wrote it described a creepy guy in a schoolboy outfit who would hang out at the grocery store. The post said, "Whilst working on the town center lighting, I saw it without its charcoal and blusher combination. Face covering, style perm ginger hair, embarrassingly too small schoolboy's uniform, and ridiculously high girls' platform shoes. It was stood without makeup outside the Christchurch gents' toilet for hours on end. I saw the police twice asking it to move on without arresting it, and it continued to frequent the toilets." The thread also mentioned that when a cashier asked if the man had a club card, he replied in a very serious voice that he was only a when he was obviously not. The elderly female cashier asked it, "Do you have a club card?" It replied, "Of course not, I'm only 13. It gives the same reply to that question every time. The user also described David as a rent boy, which is a colorful British term for male prostitute. There's no follow-up evidence to corroborate this statement, but the other details about the cosplaying and platform shoes sounded exactly like what David was doing online 25 years later. The information was in line with another eyewitness account that was posted online in the wake of the explosion. He's really creepy. I used to live just outside the town center at that time, and before I even saw him in court or the paper, I came across him several times outside Hall Cross, dressed as a schoolgirl with that makeup on. schoolgirls. He did live on Christchurch Road. I think his name is something like David Walter Alter, but he had some kind of persona he believed he was when dressed up in those clothes, makeup. Once again, the name David Walter Alter had resurfaced in the case, and twice cannot be a coincidence. The user also added that David was in his late 30s at the time, and had been reported a handful of times between 2000 and 2005, but never really facing any real consequences. And with that, the picture began to form more accurately. Another important piece of evidence was found in a 1999 newspaper archive. There was a public notice from South Yorkshire Police warning people to ignore any requests for money from a man named David Alter, also known as David Stanfield Alter of Doncaster. It became clear that the name David Alter could be connected to the weirdo in the school uniform. The notice basically said that David was asking for money from church members, and the police were telling people to ignore him. More David Alter pieces of information continued to resurface just like this one. An old newspaper article about the importance of wearing school uniforms was found in the process, and it was signed by yours truly, David Alter. Is this the same David Alter we've been talking about? It's unsure, especially because this is a newspaper column. You have to be of sound mind to be able to have a feature of this scale, and David, as we've seen so far, didn't fit the bill. But it is worth mentioning regardless, because the title of the publication suits the crux of the matter. Another breakthrough in this case came when someone found a Facebook comment from a late 2023 where a user named David London mentioned living in flat 88 at Cairn Point, a public housing tower in Kennington, London. One of the Kiwi Farms users went to the Lambeth archives and confirmed that a David W. Stansfield had indeed lived in that exact flat in 1983. They had confirmed his real full name, as well as other interesting facts about his family background. David Walter Stansfield was born in December in 1962 in Camberwell, London. His father, John Jacob Stansfield, was black and originally from South Africa, while his mother, Ilsa, was white and from Germany. He grew up with an older brother named John and a younger sister named Ingrid. The family was super religious, attending the Worldwide Church of God, which was this strict evangelical church founded by an American preacher. David stayed religious even as an adult, which makes his whole situation even more confusing, since his online activities were definitely not very Christian. There's a fascinating and somewhat disturbing piece of information that connects David's past to his present behavior in a potentially significant way. He went to Stockwell Manor School from 1974 to 1979, and in this school, a teacher named Jeff Morrell was later convicted of sexually abusing students. David has been known to defend Morrell online through his Stephanie Schoolie account. He wrote that one of his relatives attended the same school, and in his relative's mind, Mr. Morrell was a good person. The main crime Mr. Morrell had committed, according to this post, was engaging in play wrestling with a This was the only boundary that Mr. Morrell had crossed. This defense is absolutely bonkers, and a mockery to the justice system that had found Jeff Morrell guilty in the first place. It only served to add another layer of creepiness to David's whole deal. It makes you wonder if something happened to David when he was that messed him up and contributed to his current obsessions. Here we have a man who was convicted of students at the very school David attended during his formative years. David's defense of Morrell online, where he minimized the abuse as mere play wrestling, indicates that there's a possible profound psychological disturbance playing around somewhere in his psyche. First, there's the possibility that David himself was one of Morrell's victims. This would explain why he feels compelled to defend his abuser, a common psychological response among abuse survivors known as identification with the aggressor. Victims often minimize or rationalize their abuser's behavior as a way of coping with the trauma they experienced. If David was by Morrell, his current behavior could be seen as a repetition compulsion, which is a psychological phenomenon where someone unconsciously repeats traumatic experiences in an attempt to master them. This could explain why his perversion evolved the way it did. On the other hand, even if David wasn't directly a Morrell, the fact that the occurred at his school during his attendance would have made the experience impossible to escape from, even if he wasn't a direct victim. However, and most importantly, the defense of Morrell could be part of David's broader pattern of projection and denial. What if he defended Morrell because he saw himself in Morrell, a man who was caught engaging in inappropriate behavior with but who may have rationalized his actions? By defending Morrell, David is implicitly defending himself. Bear in mind that these are all speculations and not definite facts. It's important to stress that there's no actual evidence that David himself was ever a this remains pure speculation. What isn't speculation, however, are the countless reports from people who are now sure that SmartSchoolBoy9 was David Alter. According to one comment, the locals who saw him gave him nicknames like Gray Man and Clown Monkey Man. One YouTube comment in one of his documentaries read, "This is genuinely not a lie. I swear I know this person. I'm originally from Doncaster, and during my teens/early 20s there, I would occasionally see what me and my friends called Clown Monkey Man." Some added that he had vitiligo, which is a condition where the skin loses its color or pigment, although there's there's no solid proof yet. Another user added that this clown monkey man often appeared in formal attire. In all honesty, I'm surprised he's changed his usual get-up. Looked like a teacher last time round. The office look was corroborated with pictures that were shared on Reddit. The photos were cropped from a video which was recorded in September 2011, and it showcased the man who looked like David walking down the road in very long strides while giving the middle finger to the camera. This is how I've seen him every single time. This is him going about his normal day. No camera, no school outfit. Notice the long stride while he walks. That is his distinctive walk. For context, we were driving by and shouted something at him out of the car window. This was the exact moment I found out that locally he was called David Walter Alter. My mate who was driving shouted at him. From the clips you can see a clash of reddish brown and white on his face, which could corroborate the claim that David did, or does in fact, have vitiligo. Other than Clown Monkey Man, other locals joked that David resembled the flying monkeys in The Wizard of Oz. He had like little wings he used to wear to make him look like those flying monkeys from Wizard of Oz, and he sort of used to glide up and down. Hard to explain. He definitely was, and that's saying something. And we've already established the fact that his appearance looks like the product of a crossbreeding between Pennywise and Constance Nebbercracker from Monster House. Everyone had something to say about David's makeup, everyone except David himself. To him, nothing about a dusty pale face with tomato red lips and a bulging tongue was odd. It was like a second skin to him, and that's why he was so memorable for everyone who remembered him. Interestingly, David Firth, the creator of the creepy web series Salad Fingers, also recalled seeing David around Doncaster. Firth said in a message that got shared online, "Yeah, I think I remember him walking around town in the late 90s or early 2000s when I was at Hall Cross School. He never approached me though. If we are talking about the same person, he was a dark-skinned guy who would wear really sloppily applied makeup, like just a bunch of white and red makeup slash face paint, like it was just smeared across his face. I remember him wearing a white shirt and a school tie and had a strange posture, or walked quite leaned forwards. He was quite tall and walked very fast. He seemed startled, looking all around quite paranoid. Probably walked past me a couple of times near Hall Cross School at that end of town. That's all I remember. I'd say 1999 to 2001. Firth also said that people at the time had rumors that David was one of many crazed people who were released from a nearby mental hospital that had closed down, but he didn't know for sure. Later, after all the attention, Firth had to tell everyone to leave him alone. TikTok detectives were all up in his DMs asking if his work was based on David and if he had connections to him. Fed up with the behavior, he posted on Twitter, "Please stop asking me about SmartSchoolBoy9. I replied to a DM a few weeks ago asking if I remembered this guy who would walk around Doncaster dressed as a schoolboy with the weird makeup on. Yes. I walked past him in the town center 20 to 25 years ago. I walked past him. That's all. Now I see posts and videos saying he has something to do with the creator of Salad Fingers. No, he doesn't. He was just your classic local lunatic. I was a teenager at the time. I only remember because his appearance was striking. Now my DMs are full of TikTok detectives. And Firth wasn't the only person who wished they could be rid of this stain. That was David Alter. One lady named Keely Pert, who happened to be a victim of David's also revealed that her case had taken him to court when she was 15. It happened in 2004. David was arrested for harassing Keely, who was just a student near Hall Cross School in Doncaster. When the police searched his flat, they found that he had been taking photos of her without her knowledge. David Walter Alter. He stalked me, found photos of me in his flat when I was and ended up in court, led him because of his mental health. Instead of going to prison, David was sectioned, which in the UK means being forcibly committed to a mental hospital. This seems to be a pattern with him. Every time he gets in legal trouble, the courts decide he's just mentally ill and let him off with treatment instead of locking him up. It's super frustrating for everyone who knows what he's really like, because he just keeps doing the same creepy stuff over and over again. David's version of events was completely different, of course. On his Facebook account, he wrote about, "It isn't nice being lied about and then finding years later that the person who lied about you because they couldn't get their way is now going through something that has led to their experiencing something that they had deliberately and falsely said had happened to you." Similarly, on his Stephanie Schooley account, he went on a long coke rant about the incident, stating that a person named Darren had won a legal matter in 2004 where he was quote-unquote lied about by a girl. According to him, this girl had wanted to be Darren's girlfriend and was rejected but became bitter. It's no surprise to anyone that Darren was absolutely David in this story. He had narrated the story multiple times, and he just couldn't admit that he did anything wrong. After the 2004 incident, David seemed to lay low for a while, but by 2015 he had discovered social media and started creating his online empire. He created his David London Facebook account. Then by 2018, David had created his first persona, Stephanie, and this was where the whole rabbit hole officially began. In addition to the David London account, a second one known as Lyricist David was created. Both accounts were his private space for poems and posts about the old neighborhoods where he used to live. It's also on one of these platforms that he posted his very terrible music.
The ceiling here. I think I hear a running tram going back in time, not out of time. I think I like a little lemon and lime. Say Mary Ann, hey Steely Dan, I like the sound of that running tree.
An archived collection of his discography can be found on the Kiwi Farms forum, and it's over 54 minutes long, and this is 54 minutes worth of no's and nothing. Here's a clip to convince you.
You know what I say about music. You know what I say about song. You know about what the things that make it happen, and you can't go wrong. No, you can't go wrong. And you know what I say about music.
Apart from these Facebook accounts, it's assumed that there was one YouTube channel named David's Poetry which had this same function. This channel reportedly posted archive footage of London's streetscapes paired with creepy poetry narrations and distorted music. It had the same unsettling quality as his other personas, because his other accounts also posted about poetry. All these details point to the fact that David had a passion for writing and literary works, even though his music sucks. Reports from one Facebook source reinforces this idea. According to a user named Carol Cole, David had expressed his intention to write a book in the past. He was a very well-educated man, and had previously told my late brother-in-law, who also had problems, that he planned to write a book. Other than the two girls' accusations, he was not accused of any other crime. Carol had known someone like David from Doncaster, but the person was rumored to have passed away some years ago. I remember the school uniform man from Doncaster. 30 years ago, when he was in his 30s, he was half Indian, and he did not paint his face white. He just looked unusual. He also had mental health problems. I realize it's not 1994 now, but the uniform in the photo there is completely different to the one he wore, which was always burgundy and well-fitting. He always carried a sandwich box, but not a book bag, and was still living in Doncaster in 2003 when I left. He was accused by two teenage girls of asking inappropriate questions, and was found not guilty in court. Last I heard, he passed away in West Yorkshire 11 years ago. We can treat this piece of information with a grain of salt, since David was pretty much alive as of 2024 when he got busted. But be that as it may, one point is noteworthy: the fact that he had, and may still have, a thing for writing songs and poems. There's even a consensus online that his songs, although terrible to the ears, have a bit of symbolism to it. On TikTok, an account named Vianney made a post captioned, "Breakdown of SmartSchoolBoy9's song," which has over 61,000 likes. This post included a slideshow of several pictures which broke down the wordings of David's incomprehensible song, and the more you read on, the more things begin to look creepy. According to the analysis, David was talking about doing illegal and inappropriate things to Marianne, and there's theorized to have innuendos which mean and non-consensual intercourse respectively. Of course, not everyone believed that David was smart enough to attach such in-depth symbolism to his song, even at 60. In the aftermath of his unraveling, many people condemned him, rightfully so. However, there were some others who had an alternative perspective on the SmartSchoolBoy9 story. Some media reports, including an article from Byline Times. The article, which was published in November 2024, entitled SmartSchoolBoy9, the disturbing story of how social media algorithms encouraged a vigilante mob, suggested that David was actually a vulnerable adult who was the subject of an online witch hunt. This perspective points out that many YouTubers and internet sleuths got basic facts wrong, claiming David's surname is not Alter, he is not 59 years old, and he does not live in London. It also reinforces that despite his disturbing behavior, David has never been convicted of a crime. The article details how he was arrested for stalking a named Keeley, but was found not guilty and was sectioned under the Mental Health Act. The article was right in pointing out the negatives that happened in the course of narrowing down David's location. They examined the clues that were found in the background of his posts. Then with time, there was a major headway. In early September 2024, some locals who were most likely young got so angry about living near someone as creepy as David that they threw a brick through the window of the house on Christchurch Road, Doncaster, where he was believed to live. This made the rounds on TikTok and became pretty controversial for obvious reasons. Many people at the time claimed that David no longer lived in this place anyway, so this was a pointless action that just hurt whoever actually lived there. Some, possibly the same ones who bricked the window, went to the house later to film the aftermath. They found a worker fixing the window and a mysterious brown hand holding the door slightly cracked open without ever showing the face.
People have finally found out where SmartSchoolBoy9 is, and not only are the videos that we've seen from outside of the house really creepy, and remember, this is all happening in Doncaster.
This kind of content was practically what the news article was addressing. Nothing can justify harassing unrelated people in this situation, but the mere fact that David remains at large and does in fact give his story a sense of urgency. No prison or mental facility has restrained him, and his online activities over the years have shown that he has become pretty daring and in tune with his creepy self. So far, we've not received additional information from people close to David. However, this article on Byline Times adds a layer to SmartSchoolBoy9's story through the lens of his family. Apparently, David's brother and sister had cut ties with him, and David's sister had reportedly stated that he is an adult who made his own choices. Our wider investigation revealed a complicated and an online history in which David has spent a considerable amount of time interacting with adults under his schoolgirl persona. When we reached out to his family, David's brother-in-law said that he had not seen him since maybe 2007. His sister replied to us on social media to say that David is an adult. He made choices of how to react to life. Many have chosen to overcome hurdles. The past is the past. He could get counseling and support. I've moved on from that and have a new life. David himself has not replied to our request for comment, but the truth is that David in fact left his own comments, but not on the media. He did that in private messages where he was confronted by internet users who were repulsed by him. David would say things like, "I'm 10. There's boys much taller at my age in Kenya." When he was ridiculed for his painted face, he added, "It's my natural face, you sick. Stop scraping barrel for excuses, you weirdo." The use of insults and instant defense mode showcased that David is a man with his thinking faculty. After the exposure, David went quiet, but not without uploading a video on his YouTube channel. This video was almost a minute long, and in it, he spoke his truth about his mouth and painted face, insisting that they were all natural.
Hi there, I'm SmartSchoolBoy9. Important. I have a healthy mouth of teeth. Real ones, not fake. I sometimes have worn upon my lower teeth.
He didn't address the havoc he had wreaked or tried to explain himself properly. Instead, his main concern was how people perceived his appearance.
No, I've never ever worn any fake teeth. I'm not bald. So, I thought to clarify that.
This behavior shows that David had absolutely no remorse for his behavior, and this brings us to another crucial aspect of this case. One of the most confusing and frustrating things about this whole case is what happened with the police. In September 2024, the Greenwich Metropolitan Police actually put out a warning on social media that said, "Parents, please be aware of SmartSchoolBoy9 messages circulating on Snapchat. A male is pretending to be a child and engaging with on social media. An investigation is ongoing, but his intentions are unclear. Stay vigilant and talk to your about online safety." But then not long after, they took the post down, and when a news site called Dexerto asked them about it, the police said, "We are aware of the video being posted online. As no crime has been committed in the content of the video, we are not investigating anything at this time." This caused a huge uproar online. How could a man be pretending to be a child, posting edited photos of real kids in the weird positions, and messaging actual and the police couldn't do anything about it? The answer is that in the UK, the laws about online behavior are a lot different than in countries like the US. The stuff David posted, while disturbing, didn't technically cross the line into pornography, and without proof that he was actively hurting, the police had their hands tied. So even though everyone knew David was a creep, the police couldn't arrest him because he hadn't technically broken any laws. It's a massive loophole in the system that allows predators to operate right under everyone's noses. In the midst of the quiet, many netizens continue to create awareness and make fun of him. They cosplayed him for Halloween, and some do a very terrific impression of him that would make you think it was really David. But you know, no one can replace the original.
Now, ready to find a school. Where can I find new friends?
To this day, there are a bunch of suspicious accounts that defend David Alter despite the mountain of evidence against him. Rather, it's possible that they could be rage-baiting internet trolls or maybe even David's current alternative accounts. One such account, as pointed out by this Reddit user, is this one named Summer7Vibes. The account has Lively Princess written in the bio and was created in December 2025. This account can be seen constantly defending David in documentaries about him. He's a young boy, hadn't done anything wrong, was scammed and lied about by bad people knowing that he's a bad people still being caught. SmartSchoolBoy9 is a that rejected predators and they lie about him. Notice how this user also played the "they rejected him and they lied about him" card? Just like David did in his retelling of the 2004 court incident with Keely Pert. And who would defend some random stranger with this much energy on the internet? Absolutely no one, unless this user was paid by someone whose name ends with Alter. Again, take this with a grain of salt. For all we know, it might be someone who resonates deeply with David or a troll seeking attention. Well, Summer7Vibes wasn't the only one bringing winter in Crazy Town. There's also another YouTube account with this deranged behavior, and just like Summer7Vibes, this one is called Joyous Girl, and the shocker is that it has more than 200 subscribers with a bio saying, "Girl, genuine." What's more, the account has been up since 2021. Is this a real person with mental issues, or is this one of David's old accounts that we missed? The truth is, we can't say. But what we can have an opinion about is that this user had a deep devotion to David in the comments, just like Summer7Vibes. Joyous Girl has been caught saying, "The schoolboy is a young innocent boy, so do not believe the lies of the weird jealous man that made that hateful video. You'll know the truth someday, and you'll be talking about it alright. Guaranteed. The young boy isn't wearing any makeup. He is a beautiful, innocent, kind soul doing good. The truth is winning. The user even had something to say about the video of David chasing a in the park, and for the record, it's not in favor of the masses. The young school uniform boy is 9 years of age. There's lies about him because he is speaking out against and as for a video of him chasing a boy, he was age 6 at the time chasing during play, an older boy age 9. That's a proven fact. And as for the David person, he's not in the documentary. He's someone else entirely, not in the uniform. He's innocent as well. Even after all this exposure, David still can't stop himself. In late 2024 and early 2025, new TikTok accounts that looked like they could be David started popping up. There was Vicky Soul 5 and No Allowed To. Like the other two we discussed earlier, these accounts are notorious for defending David in the comments section. If this is someone else, what is the actual drive? Clout, boredom, unemployment? It would only make sense if David, a man in his early 60s with nothing to do, was the one behind this clownery. There are still so many questions about David that nobody can answer. Was he Does he have vitiligo? Does he have a drowning fetish? Because this might explain his obsession with pale skin, red lips, and weird tongues, as they could depict drowned bodies. The questions are many, and the answers will remain elusive if he is not brought to justice in due time, which should have been since 2004 or earlier. But the only clear truth is that David is a walking mental case, and he needs to stay as far away from as physically possible.